Donald Trump is at it again. In a bizarre post on his platform, Truth Social, the American president rambled on incoherently about why Canada should become the 51st state. Much of the media coverage of Trump's post has been about its potential effect on today's national election. But there is another angle to his boasting, a darker side rooted in 19th century American history. Manifest destiny was the belief, common from the mid century on, that U.S. expansion across the entire North American continent was both justified and inevitable. Viewed from today, Manifest Destiny was a toxic political brew that combined American exceptionalism and racial superiority with a mission to spread capitalism and Protestant Christianity. Sound familiar? Dr. Bradley Miller is an associate professor of history at the University of British Columbia. He joined me to explain how Donald Trump may or may not fit into the American tradition of manifest destiny. Brad, manifest destiny seems to be kind of an echo from the 19th century that's playing out again under Donald Trump in 2025. And what's your general take on whether or not that's accurate, or is today something different?
Yeah, I think we're seeing rhetoric coming out of the White House that, frankly, we haven't seen since the late 19th century, right? Not from this high level of an official and not with this volume, this kind of pomposity about how much we could be civilized by the United States. That's been, that was something that terrified British North Americans going back to the 1840s. Not all of them, but many of them. And it's a threat that, frankly, we haven't thought about in living memory, at least.
Wasn't American exceptionalism and manifest destiny a big motivating factor for why John A. Macdonald and others in Canada leaders actually came together and formed Canada, the Confederation in 1867?
It was certainly part of it. Fear of the Americans, frankly, a desire in some ways to do with our West what the Americans were doing with theirs was certainly part of it. Now, if you look at those speeches, though, if you look at what the Fathers of Confederation were saying, they did not speak generally with that same level of rhetorical flourish of the special destiny of the Canadian people. Ours was a much more pragmatic political deal.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment because American exceptionalism is an important part of manifest destiny, the idea of it, but it also has sort of resonated throughout American history. But how does American exceptionalism play into manifest destiny, and especially how that might relate to Trump's comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think at its core, Manifest Destiny came to mean that the Americans had a special destiny, a special power of civilization. It started in the 1840s with continental expansion, wanting to move west and south, but also, to be clear, also north. Right, lots of the Manifest Destiny advocates wanted a takeover of British North America and the British territories out west. It started in a dispute over what's now British Columbia, and it was pretty powerful. And then it died away for a number of decades. And then, boy, did it roar back to life in the 1890s with arguments for the United States, not just to become a continental power, but to become an international power, to expand as they ended up doing into the Spanish Empire, into the Philippines. That was a period in which people came to talk about an American empire.
Yeah, that's the important thing here is that there's a lot of territorial expansion that goes on that's justified by manifest destiny.
Yeah.
And boy, that sounds exactly like Trump. But here's a point I'm kind of curious to get your take on, and that is the extent to which these ideas resonate with modern Americans.
I think in the overtones of returning to a more powerful period, a period of American progress, even a period of American dominance, that's all very appealing for Americans. I gotta say, I think most Americans don't even take any notice of the idea that Canada would be the 51st state. There was some discussion down there of whether it would be useful to take over Panama. And the thing with Greenland got enough attention that there was a political incentive to send the vice president there, whatever that means. But I don't think any American is voting for president or congressman or senator or anything else on the basis of taking over Canada.
Yeah, I would agree that I don't think that if you were to hold an election on the issue that the Canadian Americans would be all that interested. But within the Trump supporters, who are generally called MAGA, Make America Great Again, that seems to be a repository for these kinds of ideas that you see historically in Manifest Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, I think they love the overtones. That's, you can easily see why Manifest Destiny in this respect is tied with tariffs, right? We're going to build ourselves domestically, and then we're going to build ourselves in the world, and we'll be respected all over again. But this strikes me as something, frankly, that started in Trump's mind as an attempt to troll Trudeau, an attempt to throw him off his game when they were going to begin negotiations. And it strikes me as something that he keeps doing because it angers people that he doesn't like. And who knows, on any given day, who knows which things coming out of Trump's mouth or out of his social media account are about political strategy. And to be clear, I think we often underestimate the extent to which some of the stuff that Trump does, which seems weird to us, is actually calculated good and calculated political strategy. Who knows how much of it is that and how much of it is the brain farts of somebody who's fighting 17 different battles at any given time?
Fair point. Fair point. Let's wrap up the interview with this question, Brad, and that is Canadians' response to it. You alluded to that earlier when you talked about the 19th century and the parents of Confederation. That being a motivating factor to resist American expansion. Uh, uh, what about today? Because Canadians are really, really not happy with this talk of 51st state.
Yeah. I I just can't get over to the extent to which Mark Carney is probably the luckiest person in Canadian politics since Wilfrid Laurier inherited an economy that was coming back to life and was fighting a conservative party that was just totally out of ideas and personnel. The combination of the genuine economic uncertainty that we are in, but also the constant bellicose pomposity that comes out of Trump's mouth, or at least was constant until a couple of weeks ago and was resurrected today. That combo, it has just worked so well for a Liberal Party that was facing total obliteration otherwise. And Canadians are having the reaction to it, pretty well exactly the reaction to it that we would have expected. They're scared. They're irritated. They're fearful both of the economic consequences, but also of the fact that our closest ally, the head of our closest ally, is saying things that we haven't heard since the 1840s, really.
Yes, and we're booing their national anthem at hockey games. I can't think of anything that could be more Canadian. Brad, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.